Hello everyone, good morning. What I am going to share whatever I know today. So as you know, the whole life is a learning process. So my objective here is to share whatever I have, and I wanted to take from you as well. Okay, so please feel free to have raise the questions or any other doubts at the end of the session. So we will keep some time for the end of the session to have your questions answered. Okay, right. So let me share my screen. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about the blockchain and how the blockchain is going to make sure that the cyber security, as you know, whenever we are in the business, the cyber security is now a very challenging task before the industry, right? So we are going to discuss how the blockchain is going to help for that. Okay, so but before I start the session, let me tell you this session is arranged mostly not very technical and it's not very theoretical, but I will try to share the technical knowledge as well in our discussion, and how to implement, or if you have any other questions related to that on implementation part at the later, I should be able to answer you. Okay, and also I am just assuming that some of you already have the blockchain knowledge and some of you may not have the blockchain knowledge, so I try to balance between these two groups so that everyone can get the same knowledge. Okay, so that's an objective, right? So I would like to read this acknowledgement. So I have in most of my presentations I used to have a lot of graphics or some kind of images and everything, and all these images I used to take from the internet. So I would like to acknowledge and thank the authors of those contents, who actually the real authors of that images who created in the internet and shared with us. Okay, I would like to thank them first, right? So here is a quick agenda what we are going to cover. Okay, so we'll be starting a discussion with the current scenario, like current scenario on how on our day-to-day life the things are happening. Okay, so I will start with that, and then we are going into the what are the cyber security challenges in different domains. As you know, the blockchain has its impacts in various domains. Okay, lots of domains are there. There are various domains. It has impacts, various use cases, so many things. But today we are going to concentrate on some few things. Okay, I have just handpicked some four domains like finance, healthcare, supply chain, and government services, and we will discuss about what cyber security challenges are there in these four domains. Yeah. Next, we will introduce the theme of our whole FTP, the blockchain, and I will give you introduction as well as we'll go little deep dive into blockchain. And if you want, we can add some technical contents as well during our discussion. Okay, and then what is the core for cybersecurity? We are going to discuss, and also we are going to see how the blockchain is going to implement this core of the cybersecurity in the whole process. Okay, so and then finally we will conclude. So this is the agenda for today. Hopefully it will not be boring, I believe. Let's start. Yeah, right. So today, to explain the current scenario, what I'm thinking is I wanted to create a small storyboard kind of stuff. Okay, and this is a kind of a small story where usually most of the stories we have in our life, we have seen only one climax, right? But this story, I wanted to have it in two different climaxes. Okay, the same story, but I wanted to have two different climaxes in the story. So the title of the story is A Day in a Millennial's Diary. So this not only for the millennials, this applicable for our life also. Okay, right. So let me introduce my first character called Ramesh. Okay, so he's a millennial youth, and he's like everyone else. He's very fond of hearing music, listening to music, and all this stuff. So he recently downloaded an app called Music for Soul. Okay, so from the App Store or the Play Store, he downloaded this app, Music for Soul, and as usual, you know, whenever we try to and he is enjoying that music. Okay, whenever we try to install an app, as we know, this posts us with millions of questions, right? So this app wanted to access your camera, we say yes. This app wanted to access your contacts, yes. This app wanted to access your voice or whatever mic, yes. We said everything yes, because we don't care, because at the end of the day we need, I wanted to enjoy the music. So that is the same, many of us have the same mindset like Ramesh, right? So I hope you agree with me, right? So when we install, so he installed this app, Music for Soul app, and he was listening to the app. Okay, fine, morning and one day, right? And he has a friend called Suresh, and Suresh immediately, Suresh's mom needs to go to the hospital. suddenly. So he just called up Ramesh and asked him to bring the car. So Ramesh is going to Suresh's house and bringing her mother to the hospital. And Suresh and both of them, they are going to an hospital, XYZ hospital. Okay, and doctors received Suresh's mom and they started the treatment. And they asked to share all the medical records, and Suresh obviously share all the medical records for this thing. And XYZ hospital, after verifying everything, they are saying you need to immediately buy some drugs, I mean medicines, to save her. It's a life-saving drugs. So they are moving to another place called ABC Pharmacy. Okay, and ABC Pharmacy is the one maybe closest to the XYZ hospital. They went there and they bought this life-saving drugs, and they are going back to the hospital. And finally, and all these places, if you see, both in XYZ hospital and ABC Pharmacy, and Ramesh is the one who is making a mobile payment for his friends on behalf of his friend Suresh. Okay, right. And here introduce another character called Venkat. This is Ramesh's dad, and he's a pensioner. Okay, so he called Ramesh and asked him to upload some documents. He's telling, "Hey Ramesh, I have sent some documents to WhatsApp. So please upload this document in this particular site. So I need to complete some process." So he said, "Okay, I will do it." So he received the documents, all personal documents, important documents. So he went into the government website or an app. He uploaded all the documents. Okay, and this is a normal climax. And finally, you can see Subham, because everybody was happy, everything was all right. Okay, so this is a normal story we have in our life. It's a climax one. Okay, so now all these places, if you see, as I told you, there is a mobile payment, there is a life-saving drugs, and here there is a government app, and Suresh is sharing medical records, and everything is happening. Okay, so now let's go and see what is the climax 2. Okay, right. So this is the climax 2. If you remember, we introduced 3 characters in the previous climax, right? Now we are going to introduce another character in this climax. So his name is Kamalesh. Okay, so Kamalesh is part of the Hack the Globe organization. So you may be wondering, is there any organizations for hacking? Yeah, it is there. Okay, there are many organizations around the globe. They have started the organization only for hacking. Okay. So Kamalesh is part of this Hack the Globe organization. And you know something? The Ramesh, whatever he installed the app called Music for Soul, it belongs to this particular Hack the Globe organization. Okay. So now what happens? As you know, Kamalesh is the person. He is responsible for some of the people who have installed Music for Soul app in their app to monitor their mobile payment. Okay, so which means if the Music for Soul app has been installed by thousands or 10,000 people, maybe some 200 people is under control of Kamalesh. So what he needs to do, he needs to constantly monitor in the system what kind of payments are going, okay, or what kind of transactions are being done through mobile in Ramesh, through Ramesh, through his mobile. Okay, that's what the Kamalesh task is all about. Okay, so as we reimagine that thing, as you know, as I told you, Ramesh is the one, he's paying mobile payment, right? And when he's uploading the document, sharing the document, unfortunately, the XYZ hospital is a kind of an hospital that sell all the patient records. They're not the normal hospital. They get all the patient records and they sell it to another third party. Okay, so that is a kind of hospital. And he approached that hospital before, if you remember. And you know, this ABC Pharmacy, they are also not good in the market. They always sell counterfeit drugs. It's something like the life-saving drugs. As you know, COVID-19, the vaccines are coming. As soon, you will hear the news like there is a counterfeit COVID medicine. This is going to happen, right? As you know, demand is more, right? So the actual COVID-19 vaccine medicine is going to cost 800 rupees. In black market, maybe they will say you can get it for 200-300 rupees, which means it's a counterfeit drug. So this ABC Pharmacy is one of them. Okay, right. And as you know, and his Ramesh dad Venkat is also a person who asked Ramesh to upload the document, right? So these Kamalesh have access to all this stuff now. So whenever the Ramesh made a mobile payment to XYZ hospital or ABC pharmacy, he has access to it, and he can play around with the data later. And even the government documents of his dad, he will try to see what he can do. So this something like this. So this is a climax. Now you can think about what is the title we have to put at the end. Can you put the same title like Subham? We cannot put that, right? This is a completely different climax, like a Bala story, right? Director Bala story, and it will end up with something very different. So there, this is a climax too. I'm sure you cannot deny this also will happen. So when we agree that climax one can happen, I'm sure the climax two can also happen. This is possible. This is our current scenario. This is where we are living. This is our lives are like this. Okay, right. So now let's move on into the cybersecurity challenges. Hope I have given the current scenario to understand how a hacker can play in our life, how an app can play an important impact in our lives, and how this hospital and pharmacy can play another important role in our lives, and all this stuff, right? So with this introduction or knowledge, let me introduce some of the cybersecurity challenges. As I told you in the agenda slide, we are going to discuss about some four important domains and some of the challenges here. Okay, the first one is the finance. As you know, uh, finance is one of the places that ZTNet is one of the popular websites. If you are from the research community, I would recommend, some of you already might be knowing this particular site, but I would recommend to go and subscribe to this ZTNet. It's a very good channel, very good, website where you will get a lot of technical information related to various stuff. Okay, so they have, this is a research, they have given that the COVID-19 blamed for 238% surge in cyber attacks against banks. Okay, in US and in globally, because of COVID-19, there is a 238% surge in cyber attack against the banks. And another Gartner's research that says that the cyber attacks target either banks or the healthcare sector. Okay, so these two sectors were under heavy price because of during the COVID situation, because of the cyber security challenges. Okay, so now you can relate. Now we need to say how these cyber security challenges are related to COVID-19. What is the impact? What is the relationship? You may have this question in your mind, right? So we have another thing which says like this. You can see here everything was normal, okay, until as you can see here, this is until here this was somewhat better, right? But if you see here the first peak in the cyber attack, this, just see what is that. This is the first United States confirmed case. Now you can see the link, okay? So when the United States first informed or confirmed that there is a case started in about the COVID, the hackers are being alert, okay? So they thought this is the time we need to be alert. So when the whole world is sleeping, they are wake up, something like that, okay? So here when the first case is announced in United States, the cyber attack jumped to almost 49%, more than 49.5 or something like that. Okay, and the second peak, you can see here the second peak, and the President Trump announced entry ban for foreign nationals. So all these things you can see here. If you see the 4 and 5 are the highest, and if you just relate why this 4 and 5, this is something like this: first death in the United States, and Florida declares public health emergency, followed by several other states. So when the country is at peak, or country is at a stack because of the emergency situations, it may be a natural disaster, or this can be a kind of a health emergency like what we are going on now. The cyber attacks are booming. Okay, the cyber attacks are going skyrocketing in these situations. That's what this particular presentation, this slide says about it. Okay, and all these peak cyber security attacks are happened in various events. Okay, various emergency events. Okay, so that's what they say. COVID-19 has given or paved the way for more number of attacks, cyber security attacks in banks and healthcare sector. Okay, right. Right. So another one of the popular IBM, one of the popular index called IBM Exposed Threat Intelligence Index report that the BFSI, banking, finance services, and insurance industry, They are the most attacked in last 3 years. Okay, from 2018, 19% of the attacks were happening only these things. Okay, all right. So now let's quickly see what kind of cyber security challenges they have for the finance. Okay, and as the foremost one, as you know, when we talk about the finance industry, it's everything is online. Most of them are web-based application, or it can be a mobile-based application, so web-oriented. Correct. So these two are very common attacks like a DDoS and SQL injection. Okay, the distributed denial of service, where the attackers can paralyze the complete service for a bank, can happen, or the attackers can send an SQL script, and then they can do an SQL injection. Okay, and then they can paralyze, or they can delete the data. They can do for any extent. Okay, that is one of the these are one of the biggest challenges. And apart from that, in many countries, the data compliance is another challenge. See, they have to secure the data. At the same time, they have to comply with the data security policy. So this is like a two-way thing for the implementers to manage or balance this both. Okay, the GDPR, might be knowing, in European countries and in UK, it's very popular. GDPR, they strictly follow. Okay, so the banks or any other implementers, financial companies, institutions, they have to comply with the GDPR policies. All right. And another one is the backdoor entry. Okay, so they can bypass intrusion detection system through some means. There are a lot of algorithms, tools, and many things are available nowadays to bypass the whole system. Okay, they can easily get into the system. That can be possible. Okay, and as you know, sometimes back, like maybe 5 10 years back, we don't have multiple parties. Okay, for example, if you are going to use a particular website or an app for a bank, it is between the customer and the bank, right? So nowadays it is not like that. If you're going to apply for a bank loan, you will be going through another agent, right? And this agent will depend on another agent to check the credit, the credit rating of the customer. Okay, so in this way, if you see, it is not only the first party, second party, third party. Nowadays, to do a transaction, there are multiple parties are involved. So this is another challenge, how the banks can manage this kind of how they can secure the transaction from these multiple parties. So this is a real challenge they have, right? And then global operation risk. As you know, when I am going to have a bank with any bank in India, it doesn't mean that I will operate my transaction only within India. That's right, right? So I may be traveling to many countries, I may be going anywhere. The bank should allow me to do a transaction from anywhere. So that is the next challenge, the global operational risk. They have to open multiple branches, or at least they should allow the customers to have multiple presence and all that. Okay, and people will be using multiple devices nowadays. It's not only a laptop. As you can know that people will be using iPad, tab, or mobiles, or any kind of devices, watches, of course, right? The smart watches, and all these things are happening now. Okay, so how we are going to protect from all these different channels, that is another risk. And another thing, the emerging technologies are coming up, like an IoT, you are aware, so Internet of Things. There are many devices, the sensors, they are trying to connect to the different network, and they are also participants nowadays in data transfer. So how these IoT devices are secured, how we are going to secure your data, is another challenge. And AI plays a very major role, where the same time the AI is very useful in a positive way, and the same AI is available for the hackers as well, right? So they can make use of AI for something else, okay, for negative things they can use it, right? So these emerging technology also pose a major risk in the finance industry. Okay, these are all the major risks, right? The next one is a healthcare. So as you know, most of us without healthcare, and the last 1 year, we know healthcare plays a very vital role in our lives. Okay, let's quickly see what are the healthcare challenges. Okay, right. So as we know, when the hospitals have more network, then definitely we can say we will get the best medical care. You agree, right? See, for example, if you take Apollo Hospital, they have branches in many places, right? They have branches within Tamil Nadu. We have so many places, and within India there are so many branches. So what will happen now? It is easier now. So what will happen now? So suppose you are if you are a regular patient, or if you are a patient visiting Apollo network and you created the case file in Apollo, so this can be accessed from anywhere, right? So you may be in Ramnad, you might be visiting an Apollo hospital, you shared all your document. So when you are going to Chennai and you wanted to visit for some health reasons in Apollo in Chennai, definitely it's easier for you. They don't have to create another file for you. It will be easier, right? So when there is a larger the network, better the medical care. So this is a very common scenario, right? So here, valuable health records. So keeping the history of the health records is very, very important. And remember, these health records are very, very valuable. So most of us, we believe that only the financial information is very, very valuable, right? It is not the case. Even our health records are very, very valuable. Okay, right? So why I am saying this, why these health records are variable? Okay, so what they can do, the very possible attack can happen is a ransomware attack. So for a common man like you and me, this may not be, our data is not very sensitive, but they can sell our data for some other research purpose, for clinical trials, to or invent a new medicine. This can be possible. But let's think of an VIP, okay, very, very important person of a country. If they are going to, it may be an industrialist or politician or someone else, very powerful person. If they are going to access these valuable health data from this powerful person, they can do the ransomware attack. They can take all the sensitive data and they can threaten them. They can say that I'm going to share your data with everyone. Please transfer this much money to my account. So the ransomware attack is also very possible in healthcare industry. Okay, and another one is a malware and phishing attacks. This is a very common attack in any places. Okay, they will give a malware or kind of a phishing website where you will be asked to share all your personal documents. Okay, so it will look like the same Apollo website, but it will actually be pinned to another hacker's website or somewhere. The data will be going somewhere. Okay, so these can be another possible challenge. Another one is manipulated health data. Okay, like recently it happened, I think in Germany or US, in a European country. They manipulated the health data. Okay, the whole healthcare system was under attack, and they were paralyzed. It is a kind of DDoS attack. And also what they can do, once they have access to the data, they can manipulate the data. So what will happen, all this the data and monitoring, everything will go struck, right? Everything will go standstill. So that will make the patient's lives in danger, right? So that is another biggest thing. And then the electronic health records, EHR, can be hacked. So once they hack the health records, what they can do, they can create the fake insurance claims. Okay, so for example, I have access of 500 different patients health record. I will try to create the fake insurance claims based on their data, and I will try to take money. So this is also happening. This is not the new thing. This is also happening in the healthcare industry. Okay, these are all some of the challenges we have in healthcare. And next one is the government services, right? And government services, as you know, nowadays the most of the governments around the world, they wanted to go for digitalization, right? Because a lot of advantages we have. Instead of keeping all the records in paper based or these things, we know what are the different risks we have, right? So most of the companies are to reduce the time, or to have an clean or an open government. The governments are trying to have a digitalization process. And what is the impact of this digitalization process? That is also we have to see, correct? And one of the research that says that when the hackers have access to these government services data, it is very highly lucrative, and it is more profitable than illegal drug markets. Okay, for example, if the drug dealers, if they wanted to transport the drug from one country to another, it's heavy risk they have to take. They have to cross their own customs, right? Their own country customs, and they have to bring into the airport, and they have to get it into the and get it to another country, their customs, and how it is a heavy risky drug market, right? And the profits are also going to be there. But and one of the research says that if any groups, they are able to compromise a government data. They can easily sell it with another government or anyone with a high price. Okay, so that's what it says about it. It's a highly lucrative target and profitable more than the legal drug markets. Now let's see what kind of cybersecurity challenges when we have government services. First one. So when we talk about any government application, just think what kind of data they are going to have. They are not going to have data about the shape. It's not like a private institution, like not their profits or like this thing. There, if you see the main thing for the government services, they are going to have the personal records. All the people personal records they are going to have. So these personal records are very, very valuable, and these personal records are not only the people from people who are a common man, also from people in the highest rank, right? People from the lower rank, we cannot say like lower rank in the sense a poor people's data to the highest rank data. So this is going to be there. So these personal, and all these are personal information, your passport detail, your Aadhaar details, right? Maybe your bank details, your PAN details. So all these details are personal details we are going to share. Okay, and it is going to contain everything. Okay, and in 2014, this is one of the very popular attacks on the government services called US OPM data breach account. So I request you to go through this in the internet, what is this attack is all about. Okay, so the personal records is one of the biggest challenges they have. And as you know, they can do the DDoS attack is another major challenge. So as you know, nowadays, when we are making digitalized, you know, most of the grids, power grids, they provide electricity across the city, across the country. They are all digitally connected. Okay. So now think of this, when there is a DDoS attacks, someone can make the whole city or a whole country into darkness. This can be possible, right? So they can attack, they can take of all these services, and they can make a DDoS attack, and they can make all power grid to go standstill, and this will make the whole country or the city into darkness. So this can be possible, right? So they can disrupt government operation that includes central banks, defense, power grids, and all these things can be possible with DDoS attacks. Right. And another one is the phishing and malware attacks. As you know, many of us, let's say here, if I wanted to renew my license, I have to use my app. I don't have to walk into any of the government provided licensing services. I can simply log into my government app, okay, and then I can pay for it, and I can renew my license. Now somebody can create the same website in government services name. And very recently, yesterday, I was trying to apply for a renewal of my passport for my kids. Okay, you don't believe, you also try to do. Okay, go to India Passport Seva Kendra website and see. You will get a pop-up message saying there are many phishing websites where they have given. Okay, see, like Passport Seva Kendra, psk.in, many websites in the same name. Just think of the threat we have now. Okay, so what will happen if I just open some unwanted website and it take me to all my details, all my kids' details, and everything I'm going to send? They can create another passport, right? Simply they can do it. I'm trying to renew my passport. It is 6 months in due, but I'm going to share all my passport details through the website. So what they can simply do, they can simply create a fake passport for a terrorist or anyone, and they can go out of the country. So that can be possible, or they can do anything they want. It is possible, right? So please check our India's passport website. You can see a pop-up saying how these attacks are happening. Okay, or they say they're given a clear warning. Please check the website what you are going to do, any kind of passport services, for availing a passport services. Okay, this is a very, very familiar example here. Okay, and once they can, as I told you, they can access to my passport number, or in other countries like a social security number. So in India, like Aadhaar number, or my payment details. So everything is more visible when they have, because we trust, right? Because we trust government services, we share all the details, right? So this can be possible. And another one is motivated attack. And apart from all these three attacks, the attacks for government can come from another government. Okay, so if there is an enmity between the two governments, they wanted to create the unrest in another country, they can do that. They can motivate, they can identify a group of hackers or big organization, and they will ask attack all the other services in India, for example, I'm saying. Okay, so like this, they can do any kind of stuff. Okay, so any country can be politically motivated, or it can be egoistical attack, or it can be a business competition. So they don't want to prosper a particular country, they wanted to create the unrest. They can do all this stuff. Okay, so these are the major challenges we have in government services when they go for digitalization. Okay, so we discuss about three different domains. Now, as I told you before, the Ramesh is having communications. If you see between the transactions between all these entities, between the Ramesh and the bank, or the Suresh and the hospital, or Ramesh and the pharmacy, and the Ramesh and the government app, and all that, what is the core of all this stuff? Can you think for a moment? What is the core of all this stuff? So Ramesh is trying, Suresh is sharing all the medical records to XYZ hospital because he trusts XYZ hospital. He is believing that XYZ hospital is a genuine hospital. They make sure that the data is privacy. They maintain the data privacy of their patients. We believe, right? Or we trust. And Ramesh is doing all the mobile payment transaction because he trusts that bank. Okay, the mobile app of particular bank, he trusts. And Ramesh is buying the drugs from the ABC pharmacy because we believe this particular pharmacy is selling original drugs, original medicine. We believe that, we trust that. And Ramesh, when trying to upload his dad's all personal records into a government app, we trust that the Ramesh Venkat's records are private. Okay, Venkat's, the data privacy is maintained over there. So for all this core, the main thing is the trust. We trust every transaction and we are doing it. Okay, so that is the one that do many transactions. Not only for this, you can think of any kind of digital transaction. We trust the transaction. Simply we trust the transaction and we do it. Correct. So how this trust is implemented, that is the question. Right, now we need to see how this trust is implemented. That we need to discuss. Okay, right. So that's where we are going to introduce our hero of the day, blockchain. Okay, all right. So IBM used to quote blockchain as the trust machine. Okay, they say that is one of the trust machines we have is a blockchain. Okay, so many of you know about the blockchain, but there may be people they don't have very basic idea about blockchain. So next few slides, I would like to touch upon and to discuss more about what is this blockchain is all about. Okay, right. Okay, so let's simply say what is a blockchain. So if you want to have a typical definition, we can say it in 3 words. It is a distributed, decentralized public ledger. Okay, DLT. This is a kind of a distributed ledger technology. Now you need to understand some of the key terms here. So what is a ledger? First thing, so ledger is something like an account book. Okay, so like many of the nowadays it is not there, I agree. So okay, many of the shops, you take a small shop near you, so small shop, what they do, they maintain a ledger accounting notebook where they will record all the transaction every day. How many goods they are buying, how many goods they are selling, what is the profit, how much amount they are going to deposit in the bank today, what they purchased, everything they are going to maintain in a ledger. Correct. And in the meantime, he will be getting several parties, right? There may be an oil wholesaler, there may be a vegetable wholesaler, there may be a pulses wholesaler, there may be a stationery wholesaler. So all these accounts of different entities he will be maintaining in a ledger. Now what will happen, see here, these ledger, let's say if it is a hardcore ledger, it's not an electronic ledger, and everyone will maintain their own notebooks, correct? The stationery wholesaler will maintain his own notebook, and then the vegetable wholesaler may maintain his own notebook and all that. Now, even if it is a digitalized, they will maintain their own system, correct? The vegetable wholesaler may maintain a separate, maybe an Excel system or any kind of a basic system to record all his transaction, to track everything. The same way, now we go for the next level. Now what we are going to say, instead of having each one having their account notebooks, why don't we have a single ledger? Okay, so that everyone can have a common understanding of all the transactions. Okay, so that is where the blockchain is introduced. Okay, so blockchain is a distributed, decentralized and public ledger. So here the transparency is going to be there. Everyone is going to have a common view of what is there in the records. Okay, so that is where that is called a distributed, decentralized, and public ledger transaction. Okay, right. So when we talk about this blockchain, there are three different kind. Now I told you the ledger is going to be common and it is decentralized with everyone. It is distributed with everyone in the system. Correct. Now we can categorize this blockchain into different components. The first one is called a public blockchain network. So what is the public blockchain network? A public blockchain network is something like anyone can part of it. Whoever is doing the transaction, they can have a view. Okay, everyone is going to have, but there is no limit, or there is no limitations. Anyone can access any data here. Public blockchain. If you want to know a very basic example, many of you might, when we talk about the blockchain, many of you might definitely link with the Bitcoin, right? I'm sure many of you definitely immediately link with Bitcoin is a blockchain. Okay, remember, Bitcoin is not blockchain. Bitcoin uses a blockchain concept, but they are not blockchain. They are basically, the Bitcoins are basically a public blockchain network. Okay, they are the exact category in the public network, public blockchain network. How? See, for example, if you want to invest in Bitcoin, you know what you need to do? Nothing. You don't have to do anything. It's a cyber currency or a cryptocurrency, right? What you need to do? You need to find in the Google App Store or the place, Apple App Store or the Play Store. You have to go there and look for any popular app for transacting your Bitcoins, and you create an account and you invest $5, $10, whatever you like, and you buy an Bitcoin. That's it. Okay, you don't have a control that this cryptocurrency is already available once your Bitcoin is generated, and there will be multiple people. This is same for everyone. There will be multiple people doing it, and there is no proper mechanism to identify who is doing what, who is authorizing my transaction. Okay, who other participants are there in the network, how my money is going to how my cryptocurrency is going to increase. Can I see the loss of my cryptocurrency, how I can get it back, whom should I contact? No answers for anything. Okay, so that is the public blockchain network, Bitcoins. So that is the reason many of the governments still, they are not accepting the Bitcoin or any kind of cryptocurrency as the mainstream currency. Why? Because there is a lot of security risk involved in this public blockchain network. Okay, the Bitcoin is a very best example. Next one, we have something called a private blockchain network. So private blockchain network, it is only for a private, as the word said, you can think this is only between a particular organization. Okay, so let's say you are running a big organization. Okay, and you have multiple parties dealing with you. Okay, you have an distributor with you, you have a reseller with you, you have a transporter with you, you have another sales team with you. It's like a big network you have. So in that case, you can create a private blockchain network where you have a total control over it. Okay, you can have a total control over it. No one else. So in the private blockchain network, if you are the key, you are the one, you are going to form the private blockchain network. You know who is in the network. No one else. Okay, you know whom you are communicating with simply. Okay, and everybody know what is happening. Another thing, not only you, everyone in the private blockchain network knows what's happening, what transaction is happening, and all that. It is possible. That is a private blockchain network. But there is another variant called hybrid blockchain network. So here, what will happen? This is a combination of public and private. See, for example, if you take any government, they wanted to implement a blockchain solution. They cannot make it a private. Why? Definitely it's not going to be private, because the whole of the citizens, they need to have access to something. So what they can do, they can go for a hybrid environment where a part of the blockchain implementation can be public. They will allow access to anyone, and part of the things like approval or any sensitive data handling can be in the private network. So the government services can go for a hybrid blockchain implementation where they can effectively use this. So these are the three different variants of blockchain network: public, private, and hybrid. Okay, right. Let's quickly see how does it work. Okay, so as I told you, blockchain, remember, this is a distributed, decentralized network. Okay, so what will happen, this will look something like this. So this is a blockchain network. So when I say network, this is basically a group of computers. You think like that, group or peers, you can think like peers, group of peers. Okay, right. So here, if any party, let's say there are here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? There are 7 parties in this network. Okay. So any of these parties, if they wanted to do a transaction, any kind of transaction, so it may be related to inserting, it may be related to inserting, creating a new transaction, or it may be related to update on the new transaction, like the price amount they may want to update, anything. First, they will send this to all the parties in the network, and all the parties will have a look, and then they will decide whether it is a valid transaction or not, because this will be immediately distributed to everyone in the node. Okay, and individual nodes will see whether this transaction is valid, and if 51% of the nodes agree that this is a valid transaction, it will be added to the existing chain of transactions, or we can call this is a one block. So this one block of transaction will be distributed to everyone, and each individual nodes has to verify whether this is a valid transaction. If at least 51% of these nodes agree this transaction is valid, then this will be added, this block of transaction will be added to the chain of transaction. So that is called blockchain transaction. Okay, that is how this transaction will be completed. Now you might be heard about something called smart contract. Now you can see whether we need someone has to sit in all these nodes and they have to approve. Not at all. Okay, this is all digitalized. You might have heard when you search about the blockchain, you might have heard something called smart contracts. Okay, so for approval and do any kind of check or validation, all that, the smart contracts will take care. Okay, the smart contracts will have all the conditional statements or whatever, and this will take care of how to validate this transaction and to decide whether this transaction is approved or not. Again, say here 49% in the network can say I don't agree with the transaction, no problem, but remaining 51, if they say we are agree, add the transaction. Okay, so that is how a blockchain basically works. Okay, now let's see why we need to go for a blockchain, right? So we discussed what is a blockchain, we know how a blockchain works, and we quickly see why we need to go for the blockchain, how the blockchain is going to help with my business process, right? Okay, these are the 4 pillars of blockchain. I'm not sure able to see that. So here the first one is finality, consensus, and then immutable, provenance, and then finality. Okay, as I told you, the blockchain network is basically consists of multiple parties or multiple entities. It is not between one person to another person. If you are going to build a blockchain, if it is a useful or a valid use case, definitely it is going to have multiple parties or multiple entities. So how you are going to have a consensus among all these entities, it is very, very important, correct? So how you are going to get a consensus, how you are going to make sure that everybody is accepting for this to be part of the network. So the consensus play very, very important role, that everyone should agree that okay, we are agree for these terms and conditions, and we are agreed to be part of this blockchain network. Consensus. Okay, second pillar is called immutable. So what is this immutable? As I told you, this is a very big difference between a traditional database management system and the blockchain. If you are already aware of a traditional DBMS or RDBMS, this looks similar to this, right? See, maintaining a digital ledger is nothing but like maintaining a separate table for everything. In terms of implementation, you create a table and everything. See, exactly same. This is also a kind of a database, right? Blockchain is also, again, it is going to rely on a database management system, kind of, correct? But here, the transactions once inserted are immutable, okay? Which means no one can delete the transaction or no one can alter the transaction. If the price amount set for a particular transaction is $200, it is same and it will be visible for all the participants. You cannot say no, it's not 200, and later after 5 transactions you cannot change it to $150. It is not at all possible. That is called immutable. Okay, you can create a new transaction, but on existing transaction you are not allowed, it is not allowed to put immutable, you are not allowed to change any kind of details. So that is what immutable is all about. And then the provenance. Okay, so you can say that nobody can deny that I haven't done this transaction. So if you are a part of a blockchain network and you created a transaction, Later, you cannot deny that, no, I didn't do that, because every transaction is going to be inserted with the crypto key as well as the timestamp. Okay, and these two combinations that no one can change it. So you can prove, anyone can prove that, come on, this is a transaction belongs to you. You only modified this data. This is a new transaction you have put, and anyone can easily prove at any point of time who is the owner of the particular transaction. And the finality, last component is finality. Finality is something like, as I told you, everyone, what will happen in a regular database management system? You think like, if there is no centralized database system, everyone will have their own data. Okay, for a particular transaction status, nobody knows what is the status. But here, in all these components, okay, all these entities can have the same data. If they want to say the status of a particular transaction, it is visible for everyone. Okay, so in blockchain, it is maintained through a state table. Okay, so this or world state. Okay, so this world state will make sure that there is a finality component attached to your data or your transaction. Okay, so these are the four key components of transaction. Okay, right. So for example, in finality, if you want to see real time how it works, let's say you are trying to transfer the money, okay, from one country to another. So what I will first, I will go to the particular exchange house, right, or a bank, and they will initiate the transaction. I will give my $200 and I want to send it to India, right? And if they are going to have blockchain environment, what will happen now? Normally, what will happen? I have a contact only with the bank, and bank, I don't know what happens next. So let's say I transferred my $200 today, and 1 week gone, no updates. 2 weeks gone, no updates. 3 weeks, after 2 weeks, I wanted to check with the bank because I have no idea about what is the status. Okay, so I will check with them. So what the bank will in turn do, they will take my transaction ID, they will go to their system, I mean another third party, and they will ask what happened to the transaction. They may have another transaction and they will ask another one. So in this way, this will go like a circle. So this makes basically what will happen. Today the rate may be, let's say 80 rupees, okay, per dollar. After 14 days, it's not going to be same. What happens if it is $75? It will be lost, and there are so many complications. Using finality, I can, if I a customer, I can log in, I can see who's the transaction is pending with whom. I don't have to rely on only the bank to see what is the transaction status, because I am also part of this consumer for this blockchain network app, right? So I can also definitely see, I can follow up on my transaction status. Okay, so that is an example for finality. Now, why blockchain? This particular diagram I like very much. So this basically says about all that. So as you know, the trusted transaction, first one, okay, which means your transaction is trusted. As you know, why? Because the blockchain network, you know that all the entities are known to each other, right? There is no third party involvement. So definitely we can say whatever transaction we are going to have, it is a trusted transaction, and it is immutable. There is unalterable copied only we are going to have. And everyone have, as I told you, real-time tracking. Anyone in this network can track the transaction real time. As you know, this is completely secure. Why? Because there is no third party. We can ensure that whoever is doing and all these systems are secure. And another major difference between the traditional database management system and here is no single point of failure. There is no single point of failure because each node is going to have a copy of the data. Okay, that we are going to discuss more about this in the coming slide. And all the transactions are transparent because everybody know each other, and all the transactions are visible to one another. Okay, and then the cost is going to reduce, and all these party involved in the blockchain, they don't have to maintain their own system. There is only one system called a blockchain environment where all these components are connected, all these entities are connected. They don't have to have an additional investment on their part. Okay, so that is definitely going to reduce a lot of cost for the partners as well as any other entities associated with the business. Okay, so these are the reasons. So I am sure in these 3 slides you have got a base or a foundation about the blockchain. So with this knowledge, let's move on to next part, right? So now we need to link. I told you that how the blockchain is going to help in the cyber security. So only the thing is going to discuss now. Okay, only the title of the movie is going to come now. Okay, so whenever we talk about the cyber security challenges, this CIA triangle is very common, right? Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So without these these are the three pillars, we can say. Without these three, there is no information security. We are aware of it. This is a very fundamental and basic for cyber security. You might have studied, or you might have, I'm sure we are very well aware about it. Right. Now let's try to see how these three factors, okay, how these three factors are implemented or are available within the blockchain environment. So let's see these three: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Okay, right. So first one, we will compare how the blockchain can implement, or how blockchain and confidentiality are related. So let's try to define what is confidentiality. Uh, is a property that sensitive information is not disclosed to unauthorized individual, entities, or process. Okay, so confidentiality we can define by when you are sharing a data with someone, okay, any entity or any application or any website or whatever, okay, how you make sure that this sensitive information is not disclosed or shared with an unauthorized person. Okay, that is called confidentiality. Right. Now, how blockchain can implement, or how it is there. Right. So blockchain by design support confidentiality. How? So as you know, in a blockchain network, remember I'm talking about the private or a private blockchain network. Okay, in public blockchain network, this is not there. We cannot ensure that your information is not shared with anyone. Okay, but when you take the private blockchain network, definitely we can say it support confidentiality, because the people or the peers or the entities within your network are known to each other. You know, when you are sending a data, when you are doing a transaction, when you are sharing a record, sharing a file or something, you know who are going to access. There is no third party involved, right? So that itself, it support confidentiality. First point. Next, so public blockchain, as I told you, there are more risk and prone to attacks, because here nobody knows who is in the network. In Bitcoin, you cannot track down what is happening, who are all the participants, who is investing how much, and who is approving my transaction, and how is everything is happening. There is no openness in that. Okay, so definitely public blockchains have more risk and prone to attacks, right? And private blockchain, as I told you, it's completely fully encrypted, and the data is secured both in transit and rest state. So when we talk about the data transaction, the data can be get into the subject of attack in various stages. Okay, so data may be attacked on the rest before it get transferred, or it can be in the transit, or it can go into the cold storage. So it can go in any different stages. The data can get into attacks. Okay, so in private blockchain, as you know, each and every transaction is completely encrypted and timestamped. So it is not at all easy for anyone to compromise the data security in any stage, in transit or rest. Okay, right. So man in the middle attack is highly impossible. So the private keys are in cold storage. So here, most of the time, what will happen? You may think, okay, when the data is in transit, how it can be easily attacked, right? To avoid that, the private blockchain networks allows the private keys to store in the cold storage, which means it will not transfer along with the data. Okay, either it will be in the cold storage on the sender and the receiver side. So once the transaction is received, then the algorithm will start verifying the data, and then it will be. So in this way, the man in the middle attack is completely impossible, highly impossible in the blockchain. But you remember, in Bitcoin, this is commonly happens, and you can definitely have a look and research about it. Okay, that is the first one. The second one we are going to have is the integrity, right? So how will you define an integrity? Integrity is secure against improper information modification or destruction. Okay, the first, confidentiality is about you don't allow your sensitive information to be accessed by unauthorized person. Now they have got the access, or how you make sure that the data received at one end and data at the other end are same. What is the guarantee for that? How your information is not modified or destructed? How you are going to maintain that? That is called integrity. So how the blockchain will do that? Okay, as you know that the blockchain supports something called immutability. We discuss about it, right? Which means once the transaction is done, these transactions is going to be visible by all the entities. No one can change any data because it is a timestamp. It is a cryptographically encrypted, correct? So what will happen? The completely it is immutable and the transaction is traceable. So definitely the integrity can be maintained, right? And it ensures trust the ledger transactions are valid, right? So as you know, when we say the blockchain network, actually this is not the trust between the different users. Okay, what we are trusting? We are trusting the technology. This is a technology trust. This is not like a relationship trust. If I am part of any of the private blockchain network, I don't have to know who is the other person sitting on the other side. This is the decision. This trusting decision is not based on our mental or our past habits or whatever. It is not based on that. This is a kind of a technological trust between the different components or entities. Okay, so in this way, the blockchain ensures users trust the ledger transaction is a valid transaction because it is going to be within the participants network, right? And the consensus model protocol, as I told you, even then, the 49% says that no, I am not agree with the data, there is something wrong. If 51% says that it is okay, the transaction will through. Okay, so this consensus model will make sure that the integrity factor is maintained. And then we told like traceability. So every transaction is come up with digitally signed and also the timestamp. Okay, so that's why we say it's a traceable. And every transaction is cryptographically associated and cannot duplicate authenticity. It's a non-repudiation can also be achieved here. So as you can see here, every transaction is timestamped and it comes with a cryptographic digital key. So we definitely say that the integrity is maintained throughout the data transaction within blockchain. Okay, right. And third one is availability. How you can ensure how to define an availability is availability is ensuring timely and reliable access to and use of information. So if I am part of the network, if I am going to share the information, that system should provide me to allow this data at any time. Okay, it should be reliable. So that is called timely and reliable access. That is called availability. So how blockchain is ensuring that? Okay, right, let's see. Okay, so decentralized and peer-to-peer nature of blockchain makes it hard. So here, as you know, the availability, the main attack for availability is DDoS or DOS, denial of service attack. So as you know, the denial of service, what they will do, they will bombard it. For example, if I wanted to have an DDoS on any government service, I will create millions of requests in a minute, and then I will try to block the whole service. So that is called denial of service. So no one can access any service, right? So here, just think of the situation in blockchain. If you remember, each and every node is going to have the records or the data. You can, how many DDoS attacks I have performed? Let's say I have 10 nodes in my blockchain network. Is it possible in practically all the 10 nodes can be go through this DDoS attack? I'm sure it is not possible. Let's say 8 out of 10 nodes are being attacked with DDoS. Still 2 is up and running. I say 9, still 1 is up and running, because this one node is going to have all the data, right? The one node is going to have all the data, what is running on all the nodes. So in this way, the DDoS attack is completely impossible. Also, the availability of data, we can ensure 100%, we can ensure that the data is available in the blockchain environment, right? Next one, the IP-based DDoS is not possible due to no single point of failure. Now, this is in terms of data service. Now, you can argue with me, why don't we go for an IP-based attack? Yes, you can go, but still you see, as I told you, there is no single point of failure. If you say that you are going to block a particular node in the computer, still 9 nodes are still active. You cannot do all the 10 nodes to be inactive at the same time. It's 100%, it is not probabilistically, it is not possible, right? So in this way, definitely we can say the IP-based DDoS attack is highly impossible, right? And another one, even this, as you can see here, the Bitcoin network, even though this is a public blockchain network, even that Bitcoin network withstand the DDoS attack in 2014. Okay, so please, if you are into cyber security and related to doing research in blockchain, this is one of the good use cases. You can go and check. Okay, check in the internet about what is the Bitcoin DDoS attack in 2014. You will get a lot of ideas, right? And another one, And the insecure IoT devices, AI-based malwares, and high bandwidth speeds. These are the real tricks or real challenges in front of the people who are going to implement a blockchain. Okay, so these also pose definitely threat, but even then we can say that the blockchain is still very, very secure. Okay, right. So that is all about the CIA. So to conclude, let's say, right. So we can say that blockchain is highly secure. That doesn't mean it is safe. Okay, for example, if a business organization, if they say that we implemented everything in a blockchain umbrella, so we don't have to worry about anything, everything is good. No, not like that. As we know, the technology is improving. This is going to help for both community, like implementers as well as hackers. See, the hackers are not, I mean, they are not like, they are also very expertise in their field. Then only they can see. If you are able to create something, if I am able to hack yours, then I am definitely having expertise than you, right? So in this way, this is the balancing is definitely, it's very hard between the hackers and the real world people or the implementers. So it is also advisable to make sure that you have to make all your safety measures, even though you have implemented a blockchain for your business. Okay, one. And second one, the advancement in all this technology, like artificial intelligence or machine learning algorithms and all that, it is going to help for the hackers as well. You need to see how you can make use of the same thing for the blockchain environment as well, right? And then the quantum computing and identity management are another very popular area. If you're going to do a project in that, and you can add blockchain as one of the components into your research. Okay, so these quantum computing and identity management are also going to help implement or improve the blockchain security environment. And organizations should secure, vigilant, and resilient. Okay, they should secure their network, and they should vigilant. They should monitor all the transaction, even though it is going to happen in the blockchain environment. And they should be resilient, even though something happened. How quick they are going to come back to the normalcy, it's very important for the organization, even though they have the blockchain implementation. Okay, so here I conclude. So with a quote from one of the very popular cyber security expert, Bruce Senior. So he said that if we have learned anything from the past couple of years, it's that computer security flaws are inevitable. So he agreed that definitely, as long as we are going for a digitalization world, we cannot have a day something like we are 100% secure. That day is not going to come for sure. That's what he's saying, right? But digitally you are making everything. Yes, sure. Can we have a day, maybe in 2060, can we say a day where all my transactions secure? No way. It's definitely not going to possible. For we can have the security flaws are going to be there. How we are going prepared for that challenging or facing that, it's a real big challenge. That's what Bruce is also mentioning. Okay, right. So that is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for listening.